2019. It's a regular meeting of the Waverly City Council. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Bergen.
Here.
Drinkow.
Present.
Vegas.
Here.
Rafi. Here. Sheriff.
Present.
Waldstein. Here. And McKenzie is absent.
Thank you. You all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to fellow council people and all of our guests in the audience. We'll try and move along and have a productive meeting. Next item is the approval of the agenda. To entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the agenda as presented, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Approval of minutes from June 17th, 2019, the regular meeting minutes. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the June 17, 2019 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? June 17th, 2019 regular meeting minutes are approved. Our guest council person for the month of July is Kim Dix. Got acquainted with him several months ago. He's not taught me all of his walleye fishing secrets yet, but I know that he spends a lot of time doing that. But Kim, if you would introduce yourself and say a few things, that'd be fine.
Hi, I'm Kim Dix. I come from the little town, unincorporated town of Kesley in Butler County, and wife decided she wanted to get to Waverly because she already had liked this town, and so we looked for a year and a half for just the perfect house for us, and we think we even finally found it and moved to Waverly. Been here almost 2 years now. I gotta say that I have been impressed with the amenities that are offered in the city of Waverly. Of course, we're coming from an unincorporated town of Kesley, and you didn't have to go too far maybe to beat that, but no, the electric, because I'm an electrician and plumber, and so the electric that they have here and the way you take care of it and the way you take care of the other things around the town and the places like for the brush to be put and stuff like that, all seem to be really top notch, and so I have been very impressed with the town of Waverly, and that has to be because of some forward-looking people, so I have to assume that this council is all forward-looking, so I give you all credit before we go any further. So thank you very much for having me for the month of July. Very good, Kim. Thank you. We'll add that you have all rights of discussion, so if you have questions, comments, or anything, please feel free to chime in. The only thing that we ask that you not do is vote, unfortunately. I promise not to. Okay, very good, thank you. Next item is public comments for any item that is not on the agenda. Anyone here with something that we need to know? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar for the month of July. Number one is pay request from WHKS and Company for the Water Pollution Control Facility Improvements 2020 for the amount of $19,499.90. Pay request from WHKS and Company for the Adams Parkway Bridge Repairs 2019 for the amount of $4,748.34. Pay request from Stanley Consultants Incorporated for the Cedar River Parkway East Improvements 2018 for the amount of $45,989.17. Pay request from Kramer and Associates Incorporated for the Cedar River Parkway East Improvements 2018 in the amount of $393,130. Pay request from Midwest Mobile Washers for exterior north
and East Water Tower cleaning in the amount of $12,580. Pay request from Matt Construction for the South Riverside Park Improvement Project, Phase 1, Exchange Building renovation for the amount of $48,900. A Class C liquor license for Sasquatch Jack's Hideaway Bar Room and Grill, and the cash disbursements for May of 2019. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion on any item? Hearing none. All those in favor of the consent calendar, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Consent calendar is hereby approved. Resolution 19-114, a resolution approving proposals from Amperage Marketing for the implementation of the community marketing plan. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-114, approving the website design proposal in the amount of a one-time fee of $12,500 and annual cost of $1,445 for a total cost of $13,945, and the marketing plan production proposal in the amount of $39,250 from Amperage Marketing of Cedar Falls, Iowa for the implementation of the community marketing plan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion yet? Otherwise, Connie Tolan, our Economic Development Specialist, is here to introduce the resolution and some folks from Amperage.
Good evening. I'm Connie Tolan. I'm here this evening to give you an update on our community branding and marketing initiative. With me this evening are Robin Frost and Brian Ernest from Amperage Marketing, and they are happy to answer any questions you might have. I'd like to just step through the timeline provided in your packet in terms of where we've been with this initiative and where we are and where we're going. We started out back in April of 2018, where the City Council approved a contract with Amperage Marketing to complete a branding initiative. It's said that great brands are not created, they are discovered and revealed. And along those lines, Amperage did a lot of research, qualitative and quantitative research, to reveal and discover what Waverly's brand is. They did face-to-face interviews, they did surveys, they did what they call a fusion session. All in all, the voices of 225 people in and around Waverly were heard in terms of discovering what Waverly's brand is. That branding initiative was completed in August of 2018. We then took the next step in November of 2018. We contracted with Amperage for the community marketing plan. And so they spent several months working with city staff along with some chamber staff, had some input, and they put together a very comprehensive marketing plan for us. We as the city and chamber team have put a lot of effort into really dissecting that plan. In the process, we identified what we would like to contract with Amperage to do in that plan, and also some items that we feel we can do in-house to spread our budget dollars a little further. That plan was approved in April, and tonight we are before you, very excited to be taking the next steps and actually beginning to implement the plan. So we're at the point where we're going to begin building tools, and you'll see what you have before you tonight is a proposal from Amperage for website design and also for marketing plan production, which details a number of the other tools and initiatives that go into implementation of the marketing plan. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those, or also Robin and Brian are here as well.
Okay.
I have a question for either Robin or Brian. I'm looking at page 7 of the website design proposal. Why is Mark Mathis's picture upside down? Is that intentional?
See if we're paying attention.
No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that.
I was gonna say, if you can come up with an answer for that, it's better than the one I have. Just creativity.
Thought you were maybe looking to see if we actually read the proposal.
Yeah. You might look at things a little differently than the rest of us. Let's just say.
I suppose
other
my only comment with regards to the website is I think that you've got some great stuff here in terms of attracting visitors, people who will want to learn more about Waverly, flashy designs, very attractive visuals. I also want to make sure that the website serves the people who are using it regularly. So if I'm downloading something, I don't want to wait, that 30 seconds for all the pictures to download so that I can look at the agenda. It would be good to know that our website serves both the occasional visitor as well as the regular visitor. And I know that's kind of a web design thing. Once you get past the first page, if you can go to the low bandwidth pages, for those of us who are just trying to get at what we're looking for.
Sure. I just want to clarify that this website would not be intended to replace your City of Waverly website. It would be in addition to that for the main purpose of more of a recruitment, relocation type tool, more so than sort of the city council agendas and those sorts of things. However, we do pay close attention to make sure that all of our websites are not only easy to use, but mobile friendly and like you said, load speeds are a major issue that we take into account.
So do we envision the primary users of this web page are people who are trying to learn more about Waverly, like the businesses when they're doing recruitment?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So is it fair to say that the transactional part of the website will still be the old website and you're not giving us any feedback or anything on that? Is that correct?
Correct. We'll take a look, and we have taken a look at the existing city website to see what content that's there might be repurposed and might make sense to incorporate onto the new website. But this would be a separate tool with a separate focus.
So how do people get to the new website? Through the city website or by Googling, I want to find a job in Waverly, or what do they do?
Yeah, it'll be a number of different ways. I'm sure we will want to make sure there's some synergy between the existing city website and this new website. We will also be recommending a media campaign that will include the new website URL and drive people there that way, along with a number of other tools that we've recommended in the marketing plan that will incorporate that new website and push people there.
And I take it that you're not ready to reveal Waverly's new brand yet. Is that correct?
That is correct. At the appropriate time, we'll be very excited.
I've been waiting for that appropriate time for a year.
When's the appropriate time?
We're planning to wait until the tools are constructed and built. Built into the marketing plan is an actual event around the reveal of the brand, and so we're just going to let the suspense build and let us be able to build the tools and the messaging so that when we roll it out, it's done in an effective manner.
Any other questions for Connie or the folks from Amperage?
What's the timeline then for that? I mean, is there any specific timeline, or is this a vague thing?
We have talked about a timeline. I just didn't want to commit without being an actual member of the staff to to what that timeline might be. I think we talked about all for the event.
Once the contracts are signed that we have asked you to approve this evening, then we will build a detailed timeline. But the preliminary timeline indicates that if we can stay on track, maybe by fall, we'll be able to have an event and a reveal and really kick this thing off and get the energy behind it that is necessary to make it effective.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, there's a lot of blanks in the marketing plan. What is filling in Amperage and blank team?
I believe that's the redacted version where they took all of the... Yes.
That's the secret. It's the redacted theme name.
So rather than put black bars over it so they could tell there's something been removed, they just whited it out, so you had to guess.
I'd like to go to blank.
So if I went to a search engine and typed in Waverly, Iowa, would I find the new site, this new website? Would that be enough to do it?
Eventually, when it is produced, not yet, but eventually,
Right, yeah.
that would be the goal. We make sure that we optimize all of our websites to be friendly to Google and easily searchable on Google, using keywords and things like that that will make sure that it's as well as we can towards the top of that results list on Google.
So I guess I'm all for marketing Waverly. I'm just a little bit skeptical in authorizing a big chunk of money for something we don't know what it is. So I just think this is a little bit vague, and I think we already heard some ideas that came out of the last research that I think were disappointing. And so I'm hopeful that this will be useful and productive, but I'm a little uneasy about authorizing money for something that has big chunks blocked out that isn't the Mueller report. So
The only thing blacked out is the three-word theme. You're not missing large chunks of information. The only thing blacked out consistently is it's a three-word
is
theme.
the theme,
That's
which
only
is the
thing missing.
point of the whole thing. It seems like a big point is what our theme is. So
Kind of defeats the purpose of a reveal if it's
Yes.
revealed before it's ever
I get it. I
approved.
get
So
that
that's
part.
kind of the gist of it, but I'll whisper it to you later if you really need to know.
as long as it's
I'll tell
not
you.
the where everyone is happy that we got at the last meeting.
The happy place.
That
The
went
happy
away
place was
quickly.
the last one.
That was quickly ushered away. No, it's not it. Keep guessing, I'll give it to you if you get it right. If you keep guessing, I'll tell you. I'll nod for you.
Don't challenge me.
Well, we certainly don't want it to be the unhappy place.
Right.
Right, if you could change it's not the unhappy place either.
We already budgeted for this, so
We
I
have.
Yes.
don't think there's really much question about, going forward and seeing, clearly, it's not yet ready for the reveal of what's happening. We're simply approving these contracts to produce what it is that we're going to be doing. So I don't think we need to have all the details on, exactly what their marketing plan is going to look like and what the theme is going to be and all of that. I would hope that it would be a theme that we would all be able to rally around and support. And I have every confidence in the people that are doing this that is in fact going to be the place. I don't think we are going to be tagged as the unhappy place.
Perhaps it's more of a question of when you say, having confidence in the people who are making the decision, maybe it's just a matter of not knowing how the decision was made. I mean, I'm guessing that Connie and others had dialogue with Ambridge and that there was a two-way
Yes.
street on that and some critical review, and ultimately, maybe you could just explain how you arrived at whatever the decision is.
Sure. We made recommendations to the committee that's been put together and charged with this project. I think we first presented about 5 different theme ideas, and several were quickly eliminated based on preferences in the group, and we finally settled on one. When I say we, I mean the committee as a whole. It was one of our recommendations, but when we present them, we don't favor one over the other. We present them all equally and let the team decide what best would represent Waverly. Since you're the people who live here and are wanting to attract more people here, and you know the personality of your community, we want you to weigh in on that decision. So it's something that we looked at from a research standpoint, and that led us to those 5, and then we were able to narrow it down from there.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
No.
Rafi?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Resolution 19-114, approving proposals from Amperage Marketing, carried. 5-1, one absent. Next item on the agenda is discussion of current and future baseball and softball facilities. James, if you would lead that off, please.
Yes, sir. We have, in recent months, had a lot of discussion about baseball, primarily youth baseball. That's what we've been focusing on. Baseball and softball as we've been moving forward. We've had a proposal from a ball group to purchase property. We've had closed sessions on this, and so in light of trying to move something forward, we wanted to at least give council the time to discuss where we'd like to see this go forward. It was many, many months ago, council pulled its support from Champions Ridge. At that time, we were instructed to look at alternative possibilities. We've been doing that, keeping up to speed as best we can, and we've had some discussions on it, but we need to, I think, publicly start to determine how are we going to move forward, what does that look like, where, et cetera. And so we want to give this opportunity for council to have that discussion in this format.
Okay, so council, jump right in and see where we're going to head.
Well, I guess I'll start by saying I think when I think about recreation opportunities that will be city facilitated or city sponsored, I think about a big picture, much bigger than just baseball and softball. And so I want us to think about all of the different recreation opportunities and updating that needs to be done, not all at the same time, but when we look at the future use of Memorial Park, an aquatic center, there's talk about needing a driving range at the golf course. All of those, I would hope that we would look at the big picture. And I think that having another a commission proposed that would look at recreation with a subset of that being baseball and softball, especially for youth, I think would be helpful, with the city taking the lead on that. And under Garrett's supervision and leisure services doing that. So those are just some preliminary thoughts I have about it.
Well, my thoughts on this are that I don't feel at all confident in being able to, that I have the information to be able to make a decision on where we go forward from this point, because I'm not a baseball and softball facilities designer. I am not sure, what kind of financial things are going on. I know we've had some issues with fundraising in the past, and there have been competing thoughts on where these fields should be located, and it seems to me that there's just not a focus around one solution to this problem, and I don't think that this council really has the abilities or frankly the time to be able to craft a one comprehensive solution to providing these recreational fields. I think we all agree that it is desperately needed, and we want to do this sooner rather than later. But I don't want to go into this just blind and vote on something just so that we're voting on something to move ahead. I want to make sure that I feel confident that that's the right decision. I know I'm still very, I still see some very good reasons why the Champions Ridge location would have some benefits to it. I can see some benefits to other locations also, but I don't really feel like I can make a decision on how to move forward with this thing other than I want to move forward. So, maybe it is a good time at this point that we have a group to take a group that doesn't have a more disinterested group that can spend some time to really delve into these issues and come back with a recommendation to the council on what they think, because a number of these groups have some real, or at least have been accused of having reasons for coming up with what they're doing that are not necessarily for the idea of having recreational baseball and softball. And I'm not sure that's true. I suspect it probably isn't. People are just having different opinions. But I would like to see a group that is that basically doesn't have any skin in the game other than wanting to see Waverly have good recreational facilities for the youth, take a look in depth at this and come back with a proposal. I would hope that doesn't take long because we've already been messing with this thing for many, many years. But I think it can be done in a fairly short order because a lot of that groundwork has already been done. I just don't feel confident to be able to vote on something right now.
Well, I don't think we're being asked to vote.
I know we're not, but we will be if we don't come up with something. We got to come up with something. And if the issue is, well, let's just pick a project and vote on it and go forward, I don't feel confident that that's the correct way to go. Not at this point. There's been too much back and forth on this thing to say, well, let's just pick a project and go forward.
Well, I mean, again, I'm hardly an expert at kind of the softball and baseball needs for our community. I think that the city has an obligation to make sure that there are youth recreation opportunities out there. And I agree with Ann, it needs to be kind of holistic and far-reaching. But I think that when we're talking about baseball and softball, we need to be focusing on kind of youth recreation opportunities. That does not include adult competitive leagues. I think there's a place for them, and we can find a place for them in our leisure services, but that shouldn't be our number one priority. Our number one priority should be youth baseball and softball. Again, I also don't think that includes the kind of competitive travel teams, the teams that are going and traveling all over Northeast Iowa and Iowa to, compete for, farm leagues for people getting ready to play high school. Again, I think our focus should be on youth recreation, all inclusive, so everyone gets a chance to play. I also recognize that a lot of the work and the people who are making baseball and softball happen are those parents, those boosters, those volunteers who are really engaged and organized and care deeply about, their children and their children's recreation. And some of those people are more engaged and interested in the competitive opportunities. But I don't think that should be Waverly's primary focus. I think we were talking about youth opportunities, for all the kids, and if we get more people playing in the younger ages, that'll translate into more kids playing in junior high and high school, and that'll be wonderful for all those people. But I think kind of we really need to focus our attention just on the youth recreation. For baseball and softball, so we're talking about both boys and girls, and that's where we need to put our effort. I also need to acknowledge the fact that, as they say, history goes back a long time around here. The reason that this has kind of spun off into its own organization has to do with some decisions that were made 20, 30 years ago that, I don't know the whole history of. And I think that we need to somehow find a way to separate the things that have happened 20, 30 years ago from where we are now and just find a way to make the best decisions for the city now. I think we need to get people who are on different sides of this issue and have different competing ideas find a way to get some common ground and leave behind all the things that have happened 20, 30 years ago and kind of start over with a clean slate and just make recreational baseball and softball a reality for our kids.
If we were to go down the path of thinking about a separate group or commission, whatever you would call it, what are the administrative steps for that?
The mayor can appoint a temporary commission without council approval. I'm not sure if it's with or without council approval. Within the council procedures, that there is a statement like that. And I have visited with Garrett a little bit about doing something on that order and eventually having it under the leisure services umbrella, as not just dealing with recreational or youth baseball and softball, but also would, as a recreation commission, could deal with archery, for instance, and some of the other sports, and that presently either are not offered or really don't have a home and things. So that's an idea. But I think what we need to do this evening, city's been dealing with this, and the former Champions Ridge group's been dealing with this for at least 10 years. And the youth that it was started for are long graduated from high school, college, and have jobs. And so the longer we put this off, the more disservice we're doing to the youth of Waverly. They're getting by, but it's not a good thing. One of the other things that's extremely popular now and has been brought up is an all-inclusive field for the handicapped. Had a conversation with a gentleman this morning at breakfast that he brought it up that there's a new one at Parkersburg, and he said it was unbelievable. He has a handicapped granddaughter, and says it was unbelievable, those kids that got to play on that field, the excitement that they generated just to be able to participate. So I think we need to get that in focus also.
So a commission of this type, then that would be made up of mayoral appointments?
I think mayoral appointments, but I would, we've tossed around a couple names, but I think if you as council, if you have someone that you know that could be a fit, at least to start with, that I would certainly welcome those names. But
just procedurally, section 2.10 of the our rules of procedures that we adopted provides that the mayor may create a advisory committee or study committee for a particular purpose. Committee members and a temporary presiding officer shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council.
I like the idea of a commission that the mayor might appoint. I guess I am curious to know how you would set the parameters and how you would decide what the directive for that group would be. And is that something that council needs to be advising on, or is it something you simply want to let us know what your thoughts are?
eventually the council would have some decisions to make as a result of studies by the commission. Obviously we can't vote on anything tonight, but if there's a directive that I think that, yes, sir, Kim.
Just, if I can just submit here, Brian, my grandson played at a Pickard field, and I was thinking about this because I was looking at Champion Ridge and all the dirt work and all that. Those fields were actually put into the side of a hill, so they didn't have to level the whole thing completely, and it was kind of nice because you could sit on the hill and then watch the games, and you had trees and stuff there. But the idea of these softball fields is going to be, or baseball fields, it would be quite an economic boost to the city of Waverly, as evidenced by the fact that we had to call 6 motels before we could find a room to stay for the night. So there is a lot of economic advantages to having a nice softball and baseball complex. Don't get me wrong, it should be for the youth, but you could do like youths on Tuesdays and Thursday nights and have, people from out of town coming for weekend tournaments and in different age groups, and you could put several tournaments in a year's time on that complex And I think you could do both things. Also, I don't see you guys trying to, you're talking about all-inclusive here, but you're not gonna want one piece of ground, because you want archery someplace
Oh, yeah.
different. You don't want an all-inclusive piece of ground that would handle everything all in one spot, I would think.
Well, I would say there's kind of two different sides to this. On the one hand, you're absolutely right that having a large baseball facility would be a great economic boon to our community. But I also feel like the city, it's good for the city to encourage economic development, but I'm not a big fan of the city like building economic development. I don't think we're in the investment as much as we're in the encouraging other people to invest. So I would love to encourage people to build, something like a Champions Ridge. If their money was out there and people wanted to invest in that, I would bend over backwards to make that happen as the city, but I don't think it should be the taxpayers' money being the one investing and creating that economic engine. We want to enable it, but we don't want to be the drivers. On the other hand, for youth recreation, I think that is something that we do need to subsidize, that kind of taxpayer money for recreation and leisure services. I think that is relevant. So it's kind of, they're two different things, and I think you're right. A large Champions Ridge-like facility would be great for the community in terms of economic boon, but I also don't know that I think the city should be the one, putting that money up front. So, I mean,
That's fine. That's just,
yep, absolutely.
yeah.
I too would like to, support, at least in my thinking right now in our conversation, another group to look at this. I don't know if I'm ready to say it should be a commission. I guess I'll just throw that out there. I mean, we already have a Leisure Services Commission, which I assume means that they're looking at the big picture. And if they're not, maybe that's something that they should be, but I feel like that's already part of their charge, but without going back and reading what their charge is. But if the option from what Rod just mentioned, if there's something like an advisory committee or some of that other language in there, sort of maybe even a temporary group to move us forward and do some research and come up with some proposals, I think as part of that, I'm guessing, I don't know if it says that in our guidelines and procedures, but you don't create a group without giving them a charge. And so they will, we'll have to work on that and give them a charge of what they're supposed to do. And in the end, all of that, I'm guessing, then would have to be, from what you read, Rod, we would need to be consulted as a council, and it would need to be approved by council. So I guess I would lean, I like the idea of another group that includes as many different perspectives as possible to get things off the ground as quickly as possible, the city taking the lead on it. It'll have to include financials as well, because that's part of, I feel, what was missing, with previous proposals. We didn't feel confident about how this was going to be funded. And so, we would need all of that, but it sounds to me like a reasonable next step.
Let me just say that what I was reading, and I guess my intention in that was to have a very limited study group, advisory group, basically, that has a sunset provision in it, so when their work is done, the group no longer exists, not to create a permanent commission that would do this. I think that is very legitimately part of Leisure Services Department. But I think this very narrowly crafted issue that we're dealing with now, I think can be handled much more quickly with a group that is constituted for the sole purpose of looking at that. And I would make their, and you're correct, and in going back to Mike's comments, what would be the charge of this group, I would make it very narrow, because it's the Leisure Service Department's and Leisure Service Commission's job to be looking at the whole big picture and saying, what do we need? Do we need this facility, that facility? What kinds of things can we do in Memorial Park, all of that. All we're looking at here is to have a group to advise the mayor and the council on where we go so we can get recreational baseball and softball going before this generation of kids has the next generation of kids. So I think that I would be in favor of having that kind of a study group, whatever it's called, that looks at that very narrow issue and then comes back to us with a very specific recommendation with financial figures, with drawings, with whatever else it is that we can have, so that we as a council can make a recommendation on whether that's something that we can support going forward.
I think this commission could end up very easily, and I can go either way, but we have a golf commission that's under the Leisure Services umbrella, so that they can deal with the golf course specifically, rather than the 5 or 7 members of the Leisure Services Commission having to deal with that on a daily basis and things. And that's kind of what I would envision as a, quote, rec commission.
Yeah, but I would say this is more of a temporary thing, not a permanent.
But
It could be a permanent.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually, a permanent
Yeah,
commission
Eventually,
under
perhaps.
leisure services, like the golf course is. But I want to move forward as quickly as we can on this. We've already spent way too much time, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. We need to get this thing out of neutral and move. And I don't want to get bogged down in whose house this thing is going to be located in, and who's responsible for making what decision. I think we can cut through a lot of the red tape and a lot of the stuff that's out there by having a group that's really dedicated and focused in this one issue, with a good solid deadline for making a report back to us so we can move forward and get this thing done.
Yeah, so I think you have to have a timeline. You have to have a deadline for it. And I think, and Brian and I were on the same page, I guess, talking about holistically. I think we haven't been able as a city to look at this holistically because many things have been on hold, hoping that Champions Ridge would succeed, giving it time to succeed, trying to facilitate that, and it didn't. And so I think we do need to move forward quickly but prudently, and having like you said, a sunset clause on it, if it turns out that it has done its work and there are more recreation questions to be settled, I think that's great. Personally, I would like them to give us an opinion about the land that we own, that the ball diamonds were originally supposed to go on. And now I think we need a more detailed look at that property to see whether it's feasible, what would the budget be.
What would the domino effect be also?
Yes.
Well, and to be fair, it's more than just, we own multiple pieces of land where we could put ball diamonds. Because we have the land out where Champions Ridge was proposed.
Right.
We have the land by the soccer field. We have the Amdets fields. We have Memorial Park.
Right.
There's land within the city, and so again, to kind of Brian's point about, does the city put money in? Well, we're well over $1 million invested in land that we've purchased in different phases.
Right.
So yeah, I think I'm kind of with Rod. I think we need to be moving forward fairly quickly, and maybe it is more of a narrowed commission initially right now, just to decide what to do with the ball diamonds, because that's the building structure. There is a greater discussion that needs to be had on rec options and rec availability within the city, but we're not really talking about doing an archery range. We have there's
just
a club south of town. There are options within that, but again, that goes into the whole concept of what does the city provide versus what have we contracted out for others to provide for the city for recreation. But in terms of actual facilities for baseball and softball, that one, I think a commission would be a good idea to gather the data, find out what we actually need, and make a proposal to the council.
Right.
And I think that can be done in fairly short order and should be done in fairly short order as to where should we put something and what needs to be done.
And I think that study and research by that group, whatever it ends up being potentially, will probably require at least looking into some of these questions that it begs about other spaces, about other types of recreation. There probably wouldn't be, definitive solutions for those, but in terms of doing their own study of it, they're probably going to have to consider the various places that have already been mentioned, the various activities that are already under leisure services, in order for them to come up with a proposal for softball and baseball that is compelling.
I think from an acting point of view, it would be easier to do the temporary committee because you're talking about a short-term group. A commission, actually the Golf Commission is an independent commission, as well as the Leisure Services Commission. So if you ended up doing that for some reason, that may be a recommendation that comes out of the advisory committee.
Are they going to need a budget?
And there may be a budget
to look
for
at these pieces of land, exploration, even though it's a temporary advisory group.
Well, could this temporary advisory group be somehow a subset of leisure services, or take a few members from leisure services, get some additional members from the community who are engaged with this, and form your subcommittee that way, so that it's not completely independent of leisure services, but somehow they can report to leisure services, and then working with leisure services report to city council?
Well, I think you put Garrett on the commission, probably, or have him at the study group representing
Sorry,
leisure
Garrett.
services.
All right.
We're making more work for you.
So the question I have, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and we want to move quickly, but how quickly do you think we can really move going this route? You have to get a commission developed, which is at least 2 more weeks to even figure out who's on it. You have to get them educated what we're talking about. I don't know what kind of people we think we're going to put on here that don't have any real camp in either side of this event, because somebody's got to have some knowledge of what baseball is, proper sizing, what can and can't fit. To even look at our property, we need to get some borings done to see what's in that ground, engineering-wise, to see how the water sits. Who's going to have that expertise to do engineering studies or any kind of boring for free? If you want drawings, we need architects in there to get that done as well, all to bring you a possible decision that you may or may not make to move forward. And that's my concern, not to be smart butt about it. I'm just trying to say we have got years and years and years and years of this already. How much longer will it take a commission of people not necessarily engaged in this to bring back a study to you? I mean, this is extensive. You're talking engineering studies for some of this, especially the property we own, to even know what's in the ground, much less how the flood area works, architectural pictures. I don't even know how you get started and then get them educated enough in a matter of months. It'll be winter before they're really ready to give you anything. It's another year then that we've gone without any movement to get started on actual plans to develop a site to move forward. I'm not trying to push you. I'm just saying this seems like it's going to draw out longer and longer and longer and longer.
Well, I do think you need people on the subgroup, the study group, who have knowledge about baseball and softball and how
do you pick them with all the people that are split on where this should go in the first place?
That's
How do you
a very
decide who
good
that is?
question. That's a very good question.
You get as many with different perspectives as possible, I would say.
We've got plenty of that.
Yeah.
Just trying to say who goes on this committee and who doesn't to get this moving forward,
It's
and what
really
time frame do you want to report
It's the facilitator
back?
that's going to be the most important person.
Is this
right?
30 days from now you want an answer from them? Is it 60? Is it end of the year? I mean, what time frame is realistic?
I don't necessarily agree with detailed drawings and soil borings and all of that. My sense is, and I am not an expert by any means, but my sense is we have quite a bit of detailed information already from a couple of different camps, for lack of a better term. So, I mean, is there enough information there already to have this group look at it in a preliminary kind of way, to present a proposal with, I mean, you'll have to do some preliminary financials too. It won't be going out and, going to an architectural firm and having them do detailed drawings, but maybe I know for building projects that I'm familiar with from Wartburg, you can get sketches before you get the actual architectural plan, and you can get some estimates. Granted, they're not as solid, but perhaps that would be enough for us to deliberate if we use the past information. I don't know what deadline to set. I guess I'm wondering, I'll ask the question, do you think as staff who know more about this than some of us at least, is there a way, once you figure out what kind of material can be presented that doesn't cost an arm and a leg and doesn't go into every last detail, can you give any advice about what that kind of timeline would look like? I don't know. I mean,
I honestly don't know. I mean, again, how quickly is quickly? Are we talking 3 months?
well, I think
Are we
quickly, to
talking-
my mind, quickly is as quickly as reasonably possible.
That doesn't really help me establish a timeline.
Right,
because what I
but
think is
if
quick
you
and
had to
reasonable is
guess
not
at that
what
right
others-
now, what would that take, do you think? If we didn't have every last,
Depending on how many people are on this commission, half a year, 3 to 6 months minimum.
Okay.
And so we're into winter and we're a whole nother year now without any
Right.
movement whatsoever on any piece of ground that we have.
We don't have a faster option.
No, that's just my point, is that how can we move forward without having this information? If you're saying that we have to, that this commission is going to take a long time to get their work done because they have to gather all this information, and we don't currently have this information, how can we make a decision as a council on information that we don't have? I
What
mean,
do you not have, I guess is.
Well, you're saying we need soil borings. Okay, has soil borings not been done?
No.
No.
We've not been able to touch that property as Champions Ridge is in process for being accused of cutting the legs out of the project. We've not touched that property. There
You're
were
talking
stone
about
mounds
the
in the
property,
southwest of
but-
that property. We don't know what's in there.
If these are things that we need to have done, then I guess we're going to have to take the time to see that they get done so we can make a good decision. Now, that means that we go 6 months and we have to go 6 months.
what are you seeing, James and Bill, as the alternative? What are you seeing as an alternative?
Well, certainly we need to have borings done on the property that we already own, because there's been some people that have some doubts about whether it's actually appropriate, and actually have somebody review the idea of, is it out of the floodplain enough? Is it going to be problematic like the field we already have? I think those kinds of things have to be done, have to be reviewed. That means retaining maybe an engineering firm and a geotech firm. That can be done fairly simply because you can do that by just hiring somebody.
And can't we do that simultaneous to forming this advisory group?
Sure.
We can.
That's what I think we should do.
But if the commission is, instead of bringing in these groups, the commission itself that's making this decision is a council member or two, Garrett, maybe somebody else with staff, that they ask people to come and present their information that they've got from the different parties. The commission hears them and kind of is more of a judicial type of they're going to listen to what the different projects are to find out what do we have, what do we need, what different people say we need to come to a decision on, from this smaller commission decide, okay, this group says we need this group says we need this, this is a pie in the sky idea that we want to have here, to then say, okay, these are, from what we've gathered, what we think the best option is.
I mean, that sounds reasonable to me, too, as long as we have experts on it who know something about baseball and softball as well.
Are there soil?
Oh, you're saying to have them come give presentations?
And people would give presentations
Okay.
to a commission as opposed
Yeah.
to having those people
Somebody on
on
it.
the commission.
Gotcha.
Do we have soil borings for the Champions Ridge site?
They've done a lot of engineering on that site.
Okay, well, I mean, if we're going to do soil borings on the property north of the soccer fields so that we have a sense of what's under the soil there, we should have comparable information for the Champions Ridge site if we're going to make some sort of a comparison between those two.
I think the planning that they've done on that site has been very extensive. In fact, they have plans that are basically shovel-ready. So I don't know that there's any more that can be added for their site.
So there's
One of the
sufficient
concerns-
information on their site, but we just don't have sufficient information on the site north of the soccer
And
field.
the biggest concern about that site is the idea that there may be rock that could make it more expensive, that type of thing.
On the Champions Ridge site?
No, on the
The
soccer
other
field,
side,
north of the soccer
okay.
field.
Soccer.
And also the idea of the interaction with the flood
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
Because of the proximity to the floodplain. So, I mean, those are two things that are fairly straightforward and fairly simple to probably hire folks to do that. I mean, those are things that can be done because those are more mathematical things.
And those would be considered, those would be unbudgeted, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
But don't you think when this commission gets together, they may decide that it's simply not worth it to do those soil borings and say this isn't something that we need to do, or this is an option that we don't have to have. I think that should be a function of this commission is to say, what other information do we need to be able to go forward? And if they decide that they don't need to have that kind of information to make a recommendation, that's fine with me. I think that's their decision, not our decision on what information they need. I would think that would be necessary information.
But are they going to be in the same position we are then? They aren't going to be any farther ahead than we are, saying, gosh, we need to look at the soil and figure out if there's rocks under it.
Well, right now, we don't know what we don't know.
Right, and they won't either.
And they won't
unless
either
do
without actually saying, what is it that we need to know and how do we go about gathering that information? Some of that information is out there. Some of the information is already there on Champions Ridge. And some other information as far as, how many kids are involved in the programs, what kind of facilities are needed, all of that. That kind of stuff is out there. I've seen preliminary drawings of things. They're not probably architecturally, engineeringly accurate, but they give an idea of how these things would fit. So this isn't starting from square one. We're already down the road with having a lot of this information. We just got to find out what information we don't have that we need and then gather that information so that a recommendation can be made.
Well, the absolute first thing that has to be done to even compare anything is soil borings on the property that we own. That you cannot move forward in any way, shape, or form without those.
And listening to this, that's what I'm thinking too, because, if what we're saying is we don't see a way financially to pursue, which I think is what we've said through our more recent vote, we don't see a way to do Champions Ridge. So if we don't see that, then what is the other alternative? The only other realistic alternative I've heard, and it may be, by realistic, I don't even mean that I know yet that it's doable, but the only other option that I've heard that might be something to compare it with would be the land we're talking about. So if our decision is, okay, if we don't feel if we don't feel the fundraising has happened to the degree that we feel comfortable with Champions Ridge, we know the city budget can't support that project out there to the tune of what they have estimated it to cost, projected it to cost, then we need something to compare on a smaller scale, I'm guessing, or less cost at least somehow on this other land. So I don't know what else we would be looking at. I think if we want to move somewhat expeditiously, then we probably do need to have those soil boring. How much does something like that cost? I have no idea.
It's not a major cost. It's something that can be accomplished.
Okay,
and it's probably not, even if there was rock there, you can remove rock. It just adds some cost to the process.
It would depend on how deep it is and what kind.
It sounds like those are the two facts that you need to know whether or not you can put ball diamonds there.
We'd probably need that regardless.
Yeah, right.
And that's not the major decision to make.
You've got other things, like is that adequate space? Are they going to be able to fit enough? What do we need? Is there enough space there to put, the diamonds in there that we need? What about access? Clearly, the area by the soccer field has great access with the Cedar River Parkway being completed. Champions Ridge has great access off of Highway 3. So, I've heard that if you put the diamonds by the soccer field, that there will still need to be several diamonds at Memorial Park. And if we're going to have adult diamonds, that they may need to be located somewhere else. And that's kind of the domino effect we were talking about. Okay, how does that affect what we may potentially be doing with Memorial Park? And, those are all considerations that need to go into this planning process and something that this commission is going to have to look at. And I know they can't make a recommendation on what to do with Memorial Park, but they can say, if you go this route, we will need this much space out of Memorial Park for these diamonds. Then I feel confident that I have the information to be able to make a decision of what to do.
Well, and we've also heard that there's value to keeping some of the program in Shell Rock.
Yes.
At their fields. So I think that's something that needs to be thrown in the mix also.
Yeah, so I guess I would come back to, I think what I said before is my stance right now would be to go ahead and do those soil borings and to form some kind of advisory group to give us some recommendations
And I think they can give us tiers of recommendations, right? I think we've said pretty clearly that youth, some of us have anyhow, youth is our priority. And so I think that's what we'd like to see done first, right? And you're looking at your budget and you're looking at the land and what can you fit and where are you going to put it? And I think, so they give us their first tier of this is what we would need to have an excellent youth program for girls and boys. And then if you want to do adult, this is where we would recommend exploring putting it or where we would put it, and so on and so forth, because it's a ripple effect once you get planning. But we can't remember, if we're going to ask them to explore whether Champions Ridge is in the mix, I don't want us to go down the rabbit hole again and end up in that project that was too expensive.
So if I can interject and move us along, then we will bring back a proposal for some kind of borings, because regardless of what you did with that property, we need to know what's in the ground. It would want to be leveled. We know what it costs to level Champions Ridge. You've seen those figures. We don't know what it costs to level that property possibly. So we need to figure out what's in the ground there. And then if agreeable to the mayor, if you'd submit names for possible commission members or how you think it'd be set up, you can certainly arrive at that. And even by the 15th, maybe we can get that established quickly so that in 2 weeks we can get this started. So they have enough time to proceed to get you a proposal as soon as possible. And borings don't take that long. We'll figure out what's in there. And then we can hopefully assemble this, we can make a decision.
So James, I just have a question about procedurally then. Does the study group formation even need to be in the resolution, or that's the mayor's prerogative to do that simultaneously?
I think it's his prerogative.
I think it's the mayor's prerogative.
I really do.
I'm sorry, I asked if we even needed to put in the resolution the formation of a study group appointed by you, or whether that could be separate.
I think he can just create it and have you approve it on the 15th.
He'll have to come back to us anyway.
I think there needs to be a
borings and one to do it.
Right, two different items.
But that could be a side-by-side
Read
action.
correctly, you think, Rod?
Yeah,
You can probably-
the study committee, a special ad hoc citizen advisory committees and study committees hereafter referred to as temporary committees may be created by the mayor for a particular purpose. Committee members and a temporary presiding officer shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. So it's the mayor's job really to constitute this group with our advice if he decides to ask for it, or we decide to give it, even if he doesn't ask for it, and consent. So I think that we have the responsibility to approve the charge that's made for this committee, any deadlines, any budget, and the members of the committee. But beyond that, it's the mayor's job to get this thing going.
Do we approve the members or just the chair?
It says
Members and chair.
Presiding officer shall be appointed, committee members and a temporary presiding officer shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. Then the presiding officer shall appoint a chairperson of the temporary committee. It goes in a bunch of stuff like that. We don't, procedures that we don't need
I
to
think
deal
the council
with.
does need to approve the actual members of to move forward.
That's how I understand.
So if that's possible, we can get that maybe on for the 15th to have that list at least done. And we'll get
Is that our next meeting?
Yes. And if each of you in short time could, if you have a name that you would like to submit, I'd certainly welcome that.
Sometimes people are more willing to serve on committees like this when they know it's not a lifetime sentence.
But, we've made a commitment to move forward to get something to serve the youth, and I think it's time to just bite the bullet and say, let's go. Mike, you have a...
I wonder if it'd be useful to set an arbitrary, even if it's an artificial kind of a deadline for this group to finish their work, and if they find that isn't time enough, they could extend it. But I always find if I'm on a group, we know when we're supposed to be finished, it's kind of like me doing a college term paper. I know I won't do it until the night before, but at least I know when I have to be done. So I think I didn't.
That the mayor would do
When they would report back.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
And it sounds like from what James said, that would be at 3 months, 3 to 6 months in there. I think that's
It's reasonable, depending on what we have to pull.
certainly.
We'll discuss that with
Because
staff.
that puts us into budget for
Right,
next year if we
right.
have to consider any budgetary type things.
That's probably a hard deadline.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Do you have the info that you need to prepare? And
Do you?
yeah, I'd welcome that there be a motion of some kind approved by the council to do the temporary advisory group.
Absolutely. We'll have a few resolutions on, one for the
But in the
committee, one for the
meantime, I
board.
think, I think we can begin to move forward with that group. Sounds like pretty good consensus of the council that that's the way we want to go. And, so we'll start to move forward.
If we have what we need, then if we don't, we'll make it up. That'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone from the audience that has a quick something they'd like to say to us? Brad?
I don't know where this discussion leaves Champions Ridge. I've heard it said that we've been unsuccessful, and I don't recall us ever having a conversation that declared us dead in the water. We are still out there working for Champions Ridge. To date, we've had 163 people make donations to Champions Ridge. We've got over $500,000 in cash that's been raised, and about the same amount coming in pledges. I don't know what we're supposed to tell all of those folks who have invested their funds in this project. I understand your position, and I sat there experiencing deja vu of when I was on city council in 2008, and we had a ball diamond task force that reported to council on what the city needed. And we've shared that report and reminded you of that report on several occasions, and I would say it's well worth looking at, because if you're talking about trying to figure out what the needs are, they are very well laid out in that report. And that was done back in the 2007-2008 timeframe. We had 2 architectural firms take those recommendations that task force came up with, including the idea that we partner with somebody to make the feasibility of such a complex more cost-effective. And that ended up being the Bremer County Fair. And I think they are an important constituent in these conversations about ball diamonds. And I don't know what the city's perspective is on the fair. For me personally, I think it's a tremendous boon that Waverly hosts and has been hosting for over 100 years the Bremer County Fair. And they will be left in the lurch, from as near as I can tell. So I'm just very concerned about exactly what the status of Champions Ridge is. We made a proposal. We understand that it didn't receive any kind of majority support, but I don't know where that leaves us. Can we go out and continue fundraising for Champions Ridge? I don't know. Are we supposed to tell everybody that's contributed that, sorry, the project isn't going to go forward? I don't know. I would hope that between now and the 14th or 15th of July, somebody thinks about some of those questions, because for us, they're very, very important. Champions Ridge didn't exist as an entity until 2012, okay? It was our consulting firm that walked us through the marketing and fundraising process for a project like this that came up with that branding, Champions Ridge, for this idea that was created from originally a ball diamond task force, followed up by a fair diamond development committee. There's a lot of history there. and a lot of work and expense. We've invested well over $300,000 in getting us to the point where we would like to start construction. And we want the city to be a partner in this. I agree entirely that the city has some responsibility for seeing to it that our youth are served in terms of ball facilities, as well as many other types of recreational facilities. We have always emphasized that Champions Ridge is youth and family focused. Between the ball piece and the fair piece, that's our primary target group, youth and their families. And it remains that. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward, but I just think you need to think carefully about how do we proceed when we've had a project that's been ongoing for the last 7 years, roughly, since 2012. Granted, the idea was hatched back in 2007, but just like you pointed out, we needed architects to tell us, is it even feasible? What's it going to take? And, we're here. So I'll just leave it at that. And hopefully down the road, some of those factors can be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I'm sitting here struggling. Fred left. Sitting here struggling on how to answer his concerns. But in January, council was told that all fundraising for that project had ceased. And they came back with a couple different proposals to pay the city for approximately 100 acres, because the fair has purchased their 40 acres. We still have the deed for various reasons, but the fair is not part of the discussion. The last proposal, which included some financial business plan, financials and things that this council had consistently asked for the past 18 months. Every meeting that was held, whether it was in city council or between the fair and the Ball Diamond groups, they were all asked for financials. How are you going to pay for it? Even though, yes, they had raised some money. The last financial showed a profit by the ball group, providing that the banks would lend them some money, but there was nothing in that financial that indicated the repayment plan.
We have to be careful, sir, going into too much detail because of the closed session premise.
No, that's fine. And so it was, for all practical purposes, according to the city, we've pulled our support, and there is not a Champions Ridge per se anymore. I think that's as far as I need to go. I know it's a disappointment for those that supported it, extremely disappointing, but just was not bound to happen. And so we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is a resolution 19-115, a resolution approving the acquisition of permanent drainage easements for the Cedar Lane reconstruction project. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 19-115, approving the acquisition of permanent drainage easements for the Cedar Lane reconstruction project. Permanent drainage easements for the following locations: Willie and Louise Mahorn's property for $400, Susan G. Johnson Revocable Living Trust's property for $300, Vernon and Cynthia Gidley's property for $1,350.
Second.
Motion made, second. Council discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Resolution 19115, approving permanent drainage easements for Cedar Lane reconstruction, approved 6-0, absent. Resolution 19-116, a resolution of intent to commence a public improvement project for the Waverly 10th Street Southwest Improvements Project and to acquire property and easements for the project. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-116 as stated by the mayor.
Second.
Motion made, second. Council discussion.
Is there a plan to actually secure property or just easements?
Easements.
Easements, so, okay, so we're not actually obtaining any additional property? Okay.
No, but at this
Just in case.
stage, we're better off in kind of informing everyone that there may be, but at this point, there's no
okay.
indication that we need to acquire permanent property. There'd just be temporary construction easements, but we don't want to get 6 months down the road and find out that that may be different.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Resolution 19116 concerning improvements for 10th Street Southwest improvements, carried 6-0, absent. Resolution 19-117, a resolution approving the professional services agreement with WHKS and Company for the East Bremer Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension 2019 project. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-117, approving the professional services agreement with WHKS and Company of Mason City, Iowa, for the East Bremer Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension 2019 project for the not-to-exceed amount of $22,285, including expenses.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
So this is kind of a new plan. Have we seen any of this before? This, what's it called, the East Bremer Sanitary Sewer Extension?
The reason for this extension is there's going to be development of a property on the northeast quadrant of that intersection with 39th, the far east intersection with Bremer Avenue. There's no sewer to that site, and rather than require them to use the sanitary septic system, we would rather have the sanitary sewer available for that property, and then for the remaining 30 acres or more that would be adjacent to that road going north. It's currently within the city limits. It's currently on the comp plan as being for maybe industrial commercial use, mixed use. And so we believe that that could be some catalyst with one project going out there, that there could be others. And we want to make sure that if we're doing it for one, we have it available for the others that would use it. Across the street on the northwest quadrant, there's 2 empty lots and some additional property on the backside that could possibly use the sewer from the front, from Bremer Avenue, a connection, and instead of going across to other properties.
We've talked about, or you presented something to us before on this, as I recall. What, didn't you?
We did this at P&Z.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm remembering.
And
Okay,
we're
sorry.
doing that zoning later on in
All right.
this
Yeah,
agenda.
that's why I heard it before. Sorry about that.
So it kind of goes hand in hand with the rezoning of that property also.
So in effect, this is so that they don't put in their own septic sewer and basically having them hook up. Presumably, it would be less expensive for them to put their own septic sewer in. So rather than have them do that, we'd rather have them hook up to the city sewer.
And what we do is we'd actually assess part of the cost to them. If they're going to spend a certain amount for a septic system, they could spend a similar amount for a direct connection to the city sewer, which is better for them. They don't have long-term maintenance. They just have to maintain their connection.
helps us spur development on the east side as well if we have that water and sewer main. The water is already out that area, sewer main out there, so other properties can look at possibly purchasing, expanding. And so it's just another expansion area to try and assist in that development.
So there will be an assessment charge to them to hook up to this, kind of approximately equal to the cost of them putting in a septic system.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have two questions. I wondered if somebody could explain the different colored lines on the map. And how will it be funded? It says.
Local funding.
Local funding. I wondered what that is.
Well, the funding in itself, this will be placed into the urban development, the TIF area, so to speak, for that corridor. I'm speaking correctly, Bill.
Yeah, urban renewal plan is going to be amended. I've got one of those almost prepared already. So that will be coming next to actually put this property, the right-of-way of the Highway 3, and then the property on the northwest or northeast quadrant would be put in the urban renewal plan and would be then available for a project which we'll list in that plan amendment. So that we could use TIF funds for that.
Would we also use put the northwest corner in the urban renewal plan? I mean, because the stuff that goes to the urban renewal plan, that doesn't necessarily have to be like in TIF. That's just in case we ever get around to it.
That's true. And we probably will join the undeveloped property that's out there.
Okay, rather than have to file the paperwork twice. Okay.
Okay, any other questions, discussion?
So the map, so you're talking about the
Colors.
the northeast section there.
The stuff with the green line around it.
green line,
That's
okay.
the property that's going to be developed.
Right.
And I don't know what.
Okay, the property in the northwest quadrant, or northeast quadrant, that's the parcel map, that's the parcel line. The dark green you can see on the left side that goes north and south. That's where the existing sanitary sewer main is. And then you see the arrow in the north right-of-way that goes across up to that parcel that we're talking about. So there's two different colors of green.
Yes.
It's a dark green and the lighter
The
green.
dotted green.
Right. That's the proposed sewer.
The dotted green
main.
is the proposed sewer.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And it may go somewhere a little ways north of that intersection, depending on where they put their street in, their driveway in. We're still waiting for that,
So they're proposing to put the driveway in off the north-south road.
It would be off, 39th. It would not be off Highway 3.
So they'd be turning in at that, turning left to go north, whatever. Okay.
And will the sanitary sewer go to the corner of their property, or will it go all the way north towards their driveway?
Well, we'll keep it in the right-of-way, and then it will be accessible to them to connect to.
So we'll basically extend it along Highway 3 and then stop at that corner.
And then go north.
So will we put in the stuff going north, or will they put that in?
Well, we may go ahead and put a section depending upon where they are. We want them to be able to put their service in an area that they can access it.
Okay.
So it depends on how far that driveway is going to be. I mean, it's just, we can go farther, and then we're going to do that anyway eventually. So it just depends on where we want to end up with our.
I understand that, but historically, we have the policy of having developers put those sewer lines in rather than having taxpayers support it.
And once it gets to the property, that's in fact a case where they do the connection to the sewer main that we create in our right-of-way adjacent to that property.
Yeah, but a lot of times we only have to get it to kind of the corner of the property, and then they move it the rest of the way across their property.
It depends on where we think the best place to put the manhole is for them to connect to. And that's still an item that's to be decided.
You're correct, Brian. We would at a minimum put it at the corner for them. Right. If it looks like the driveway access or something additional needs, we would maybe turn it north for a little bit to try and accept that too. And it helps to foster further development coming in as well for additional hookups.
Okay, any other questions, discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Rafi?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Resolution 19-117, approving a professional services agreement for sewer extension is hereby approved, 601 absent. Resolution 19-118, a resolution accepting the citywide asphalt patching spring 2019 project is complete and approving pay estimate number 1 as the final pay request. Entertain the motion.
I would move. Approve Resolution 19-118, accepting the citywide asphalt patching spring 2019 project as complete and approving pay estimate number 1 in the amount of $26,733.24 as the final pay request to Heartland Asphalt of Mason City, Iowa.
Second.
Motion made and second. Council discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Scher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Resolution 19-118, accepting citywide asphalt patching is hereby approved, 6-0, 1 absent. First reading of ordinance 1063, an ordinance providing for rezoning of property owned by Wavetown Properties located at 1316 4th Street Southwest from R1 Single Family Residential to C2 Commercial and setting a public hearing for that. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the first reading of ordinance 1063, an ordinance providing for rezoning of property owned by Wavetown Properties located at 1316 4th Street Southwest from R1 Single Family Residential to C2 Commercial and setting July 15th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall as the date, time, and place for a public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion?
I noticed in the documents that some places it said the property had been removed and other places said there was still a property there.
The residents and the buildings have not been removed. The
says
plan
this-
is to remove them.
The structures have been cleared. Is that talking about on the original property?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So specifically, where is the property? I'm just trying to figure this one out.
So if you look at the Waverly zoning map that is attached in there's a highlighted blue box right above the C2 red property.
Keep going.
Keep going.
So if you think across the street from Hy-Vee, there's a series of houses, and this is the southernmost house.
I know what that house is,
The
okay.
house is right next to what used to be the
This is it. There's a house on there, right?
So an old gray two-story.
Yes.
Up.
It's unoccupied, I think. It
Yeah.
does not look like it's occupied.
Right.
The property was in pretty bad shape when it was purchased.
Yeah.
So the property in question, is that the last blue property
Yeah.
that's got the box around it?
Right, that's the one.
I mean, there are various houses next to it, and in essence, this house used to be the last residential next to the C2, and we're going to convert this to C2, so that the next house up gets to be the last house.
And frankly, you can look at it this way, if that house gets to be, if they're able to clear that and use that, that could be their buffer zone between their property and the next property, the next residential property. That C2 property goes back farther, and if you see that there's been fill being deposited, it'll be a site that basically is included within that red area. But I think they preferred to have that house removed so that they could then have a buffer between them and the rest of the houses.
Would they need to have the property rezoned just to remove the house, though?
Not to remove the house. If they use it for drainage or if they use it for any use pertinent to the use that they're using for their C2 property, it would need to be zoned for that purpose.
So this is not going to be used as an access off of that.
It is not.
No.
By acquiring this property, they are not going to gain access unless the city agrees to do that in some manner. If we decided that we were going to change the access to these residential properties from the north to the south, when there was a finished intersection here, that would have to be done in a controlled manner and would require our permission.
Okay, but they're not going to be able to access across that?
No.
Okay. That's.
The buffer is not required though, right? You're just saying that that's what they're thinking about?
There is a buffer requirement between commercial and residential.
What is that?
Screening.
Yes, there's some screening requirements, whether it be vegetation and maybe, it would be an opportunity to do it on that property as opposed to doing it on their own property.
If you look at the dividing line where the Family Video is across the street from my house, okay, that is zoned Now that I think about it, it may not be zoned it may still be zoned residential, maybe the zoning was never changed. But that would be the kind of buffer I think that would be required there.
Well, it could be similar to the buffer between Casey's and the property to the north. And that's another
Fencing or vegetation or.
I think Casey's was quite extensive.
Yeah, that's not required either. That was part of the development agreement.
This gives them distance as in addition to that physical.
There's actually an ordinance that requires the buffer, and it tells you what you can do to qualify for that. It's probably not as aggressive as has been done in places like Casey's.
Yeah.
But it is still a way to buffer that back, or that commercial area from the residential area.
So I noticed on the future land use map that part of that is commercial, part of it is mixed use. That section of...
And that's probably because the mixed-use property was Dwayne Little's property, it had a home and a barn.
So it's left over.
Yeah.
And there's another home there, right?
Further stuff.
Well, I'm going to vote for this because I wanted to go to the public hearing, but I have some concerns, as I think this council knows I'm always a little concerned when you're rezoning residential R1 property to C1 property. What happens to the next property down the line, even though apparently they haven't objected to this? The buffering that's required under the zoning ordinances is pretty minimal. And I just want to make sure that the property rights of the remaining residential property holders are respected and preserved. And I would like to be convinced that that is going to be the case.
It's C2, by the way.
C2.
Yeah.
And could you remind us the distinction between C1 and C2? It has to do with hours of operation, doesn't it? Or
No, C1 is basically considered more of an office district.
C1?
Yeah, C1. Right. C2 is all-out retail commercial, like you see on 4th Street.
I went and looked at that today, and I guess just from somebody that's not an expert on this by any means, but I would like somehow some assurance that they wouldn't be having traffic down that residential road to get to it. Now they have a driveway that comes off of that goes to that property. So I would think that we would want to make some kind of provisions that it would have to come off of 13th Street Southwest and just extend that across, and they would come in off of that.
Well, they will be removing everything on the property, including the driveway, and we will not allow them access past the closed road.
Looked like there was quite a bit of discussion at the planning and zoning meeting about which end to allow access from. And
I mean, there's been some discussion about the fact that the north end accesses right out of the parkway in a right turn lane. And so it would have to be the right situation and the right proposal in order to switch that from north to south. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen. That's just a possibility, but it's not going to happen because of this rezoning.
My only concern is the property directly to north of this seems to be rental property.
It is.
So I don't know that we'll get the residents coming out and saying, that they don't approve of this, it's a bad idea, because it's not necessarily their property. So, I mean, that's...
In some ways, they may be happy that that property is no longer there. Given the condition of that property.
Right, but it's also in the sense that because it's owned by someone who doesn't live there, we may not really be hearing from the residents about this.
But one could also make the case that that's more of a transition.
Absolutely, absolutely.
have you heard from any of the people who live along there?
We did not have any responses to our notices, and we mailed them out to everybody within 250. So it would have been to those people.
And there weren't any comments, as I recall, at planning and zoning either. They had multiple hearings.
I think everyone there realizes they're across the street from Hy-Vee and the mall, so.
Well, and wasn't there plans at one point to put a quick start in on this property, or the property south of this?
The commercial property.
The commercial.
Was a potentially planned for that.
Do we know what Wavetown wants to do with their commercial property, or is that important for us to know?
No, I don't. What they want to do is they're preparing the site so that they can make designs for potentially luring businesses to come to that place. I mean, obviously, it can be a drive-in and have a variety of things that aren't just fronting 4th Street. And so they need to know what they can do and how far they can go to the edge so they can have that property to buffer for the next property. And then prepare their site so that they can hopefully get some good retail businesses in that particular property, that development.
That house in question was actually moved in there from where Burger King and Hoppy's are presently at.
Oh.
Because the original building was used for a John Deere store. Then I went to Jack and Jill grocery store. So,
Well, it does look very different than the other homes to the north, yeah.
Looks like at one time it was a very beautiful Victorian home that's seen, it's well past its prime, has not been maintained.
any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
First reading of ordinance 1063 regarding the rezoning of property owned by Wavetown Properties, carried 6-0, absent. First reading of ordinance 1064, an ordinance providing for rezoning of 34.62 acres of property owned by Hannawalt Farms LLC, located east of 39th Street Northeast and north of Highway 3 from A1 agricultural to M1 light industrial, and setting a public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of first reading of ordinance 1064, an ordinance providing for rezoning of 34.62 acres of property owned by Hannawalt Farms, LLC, located east of 39th Street Northeast and north of Highway 3 from A1 agricultural to M1 light industrial, and setting July 15th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall as the date, time, and place for a public hearing.
Second. Motion made and second. Council discussion. Questions?
This is pretty much the second act to the extension of the sewer project.
Yep.
Right. And for the new development going on that 6 acres on the southeast corner of that parcel, that's why we're moving the sanitary sewer to that location.
Looked like there were some questions from the neighbors to the north at the P&Z meeting, and
there were. I mean,
looked like the questions got answered for the most part about access, and
their concerns were clearly they like the view they have now, and so they're worried about what the view could be in the future. But they also were very understanding about the idea that it is zoned as, or it's in the future land use plan as commercial industrial. Yeah. We told them that the development that's occurring now will have a driveway that will be probably in the bottom end, because they're going to stay on where the concrete road is, and then it becomes seal coat after that. So their driveway will probably be closer to where those right-of-ways are jetted out a little bit on each side.
Those houses to the north, they are on septic tanks then?
Yes.
So then they would possibly be a chance that they could hook up to the sewer at some future date?
We'd only, they'd have that opportunity if it was extended farther north and it was across the street from them. But we probably wouldn't make them do that.
No, okay.
At that point, it just depends on the situation. If their septic systems failed, they'd be really happy to be able to go across the street. So it's getting it closer to being used by anybody that's up that street within the city limits.
Any other questions? Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Rafi.
yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
First reading of ordinance 1064 for rezoning of Hannawalt Farms LLC, approved 6-0, absent. Brings us to staff comments. Garrett, enlighten us.
Yes. I just wanted to let the council know and let the public know that the dog park sidewalk has been completed. Contractor did a great job on, not disturbing too much area around the sidewalk, anything like that. But of course, the day after it was completed, we had a little high water incident there, because that was on Friday is when the water came through. So there was a little washout along the edges. That's being taken care of by our Parks Department. It should be seeded this week, and we're hoping to reopen the large area, the large dog area, approximately July 15, so 2 weeks from today. We're just going to let the grass grow in a little bit. That sidewalk was made possible by a donation from Brian and Janadine Harvey. Their donation covered the total expense of the sidewalk. So we're very appreciative of that. I had a couple of pictures to show you from the drone view, but unfortunately with the technical difficulties of the overhead, we won't be able to see them today. The other thing I wanted to mention is, last council meeting, I did mention that the symphony is coming to town, the Waterloo Cedar Falls Symphony. That's going to be this Sunday, July 7th. Show's going to start at 7:30. It is a free patriotic show. So encourage everyone who can to get out and take that in.
Will that be at the amphitheater?
Correct. It'll be at the amphitheater in Coleman Park.
Very good.
Is that going to be rain or shine?
It will be rain or shine, but it will be moved to the school if it's raining.
All right.
Will they be playing the 1812 Overture, and will there be cannons?
You're going to have to come to find out.
Okay, fair enough.
Anything else, staff? We are also contemplating, as staff, the possibility of canceling the July study session while we have items for August currently set on our agenda. We do not have anything currently for July. Council has something they'd like to have on there and we have time, we will certainly do that. But I may bring that proposal to you for the 15th to consider. And obviously you don't have to approve that, but we want to at least have it out there as a possibility. Instead of making come to a study session for one quick thing we want to put on there. So,
very good. Any other staff comments?
No, sir.
City council comments?
Well, I drove to the Waverly Utilities this morning to pay my bill and took the opportunity of driving over the Adams Parkway Bridge. Pretty nice. Glad to see it open. I hope that opens up some of the, or loosens up some of the concerns we have about traffic. Remains to be seen, of course, but it looks good.
Garrett, I'd heard about a pothole on the bike trail from some riders. Did they let you know about that?
Yes, they did. And, yep, things are being taken care of there. We also had a lot of trees down this morning, so those are being taken care of as well.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
I want to say about the Adams Bridge too, kudos to city staff and to the contractor. I mean, that seemed to go very quickly, very smoothly, and just in my driving Bramer, I noticed a difference already. So I think it did make a difference, at least in my experience. And then I wanted to just also say that the water tower in my neighborhood looks really nice. But it does beg the question, and I've had some citizens ask it as well. The water tower on the way to Shell Rock, I know it's not city responsibility, but is there anything that can be done to get that cleaned? I mean, it doesn't look all that great.
Be rural water supply.
It's like washing your neighbor's car.
I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just saying, is there anything we can do to influence getting it
I thought a local college might have some polar influence on that because isn't there logo up on it?
Okay. I guess the answer is no.
We can call them and ask.
You didn't call them.
We can call them and ask them, but they certainly may not. Let's not encourage it to be done. It's not a good idea.
Let's see, tomorrow at the Waverly Area's Veterans Post at 6 p.m., I'm going to have kind of a listening session to hear people's opinions on our fireworks ordinance. So I'd like to hear, people who are pro or against. I just want to hear what the attitudes are, how well the ordinance is working for people. People who are happy with it, people who are frustrated with it. Just going to go there and listen and see what attitudes are. After the city council meeting this evening, I'll be at the Poorhouse for anyone who wants to talk about things right now. So I'll be sharing a beer. And the other thing I want to do is I wanted to wish Tim Kangas a happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
I was going to wish my wife a happy
Brian beat you.
I'm just wishing it to you. So.
Just to me, that's
Just to
great.
you, yeah.
Hey, Brian, are you going to be upstairs or downstairs?
At the poorhouse?
At the Veterans Post? Tomorrow night?
I don't know. It's wherever they set me up. I think it's downstairs, kind of at the back, like where the.
That little room, that meeting room?
Yeah, I think it's kind of where people gather and eat. But
Is it okay if other council people join you?
well, so long as we don't get decorum.
Yeah, right.
Just to
We can
listen.
have a quorum as long as we don't talk,
Okay,
right?
well.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Okay.
About an issue, right?
So yeah, you're welcome
To come listen.
So, Tim, may we know which anniversary this is?
24.
24, all right. Next year, fireworks, right?
Depends on the ordinance, Mike.
Good point.
Kim, you have,
Just observation here, there's a boatload of trees that's going to be coming down here in the next year or two. Do we have any worries about the yard out there being able to handle all this wood? And that's something just to think about. You guys don't have to talk about it or.
Mike knows the answer.
Mike knows the answer to that.
Okay, Mike, what's?
We have a plan.
Okay.
I have a plan for that.
It will be revealed at the proper time.
right.
Yeah.
We don't want to ruin the
That's right, the
surprise.
suspense.
Need to build some anticipation. That's correct.
coming out party. Any other council comments? I really don't have any other than I know that the group that Ball supporters was here is extremely disappointed, but things have to happen, and it's time to pull the trigger. Other than that, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Well, thanks for joining.